She smiles, but something feels off. You can't explain it, but your gut whispers something isn't right. And the truth is, you're probably right. Because not every red flag is loud, some are quiet, hidden behind charm, beauty, and words that sound like care, but are designed to control you. Men often don't see these signs, not because they're blind, but because they want to believe. You want to believe she's different, that this time it's real. But let me tell you something that might sting. The moment you ignore those small discomforts, those fleeting gut instincts, you start walking into a trap that can drain your peace, your purpose, and sometimes your very sense of self. The first red flag? Emotional inconsistency. One day she's deeply affectionate, showering you with love. The next, she's cold, distant, or punishes you with silence. That's not love, it's emotional conditioning. It keeps you guessing, overthinking, always chasing that version of her who made you feel alive. It's not connection, it's control disguised as passion. And here's the cruel part. She knows what she's doing. Maybe not consciously, but she knows how to make you doubt your own reality. She'll say, "You're too sensitive," or "You're imagining things." That's gaslighting. A slow, psychological erosion of your confidence until you can't even trust your own thoughts. The second red flag? Disrespect in small doses. A joke at your expense. A tone that belittles you in public. The way she rolls her eyes when you express something real. These moments seem harmless, but they're data points. Each one quietly rewrites how she sees you. Less as a man she respects, more as someone she can dominate emotionally. See, a woman who truly values you, protects your dignity, even when you're not looking. She speaks to you with respect, not as a mother scolding a boy, but as a partner who sees your worth. If she can't do that, if she mocks, manipulates, or uses emotion as a weapon, then what she's building isn't love, it's control. You can't build peace with someone who feeds off your instability. And if that realization hurts, it's because deep down, you already know the truth. Here's something most men never realize until it's too late. Not every woman who looks nurturing is safe for your heart. Some women don't crave love. They crave control disguised as connection. They study your emotions like a map, finding every weakness you've hidden from the world, and then they use those vulnerabilities as levers. That's the third red flag. She tests your boundaries early, and you let her. It starts subtly. Maybe she makes a joke about something you said in confidence. Maybe she checks your phone as a joke. Or maybe she criticizes your friends, calling them immature or bad influences. It feels harmless, even flattering, like she's just protective. But it's not protection. It's possession. She's gauging how far she can push before you push back. And when you don't, she learns something dangerous, that your silence equals permission. The fourth red flag is even harder to spot. Selective empathy. She shows deep compassion when she is hurting, but barely any when you are. When you open up, she gets defensive or changes the subject. When you need support, she turns distant. Yet the moment she's upset, she expects your full emotional energy. This imbalance slowly conditions you to suppress your needs. You stop expressing yourself, not because you don't feel, but because you've learned it's safer to stay quiet than risk conflict. Men are taught to endure, to tolerate, to be strong. But strength isn't staying silent while someone chips away at your peace. Real strength is recognizing when your soul feels unsafe and doing something about it. Because once a woman realizes that your love makes you blind to disrespect, she stops fearing the loss of you. And when that happens, the relationship turns into a power dynamic, not a partnership. You see, when she crosses your boundaries and faces no resistance, you're training her, not through words, but through what you tolerate. Every time you accept less than respect, she grows more confident in giving you less. The truth is brutal but freeing. She can only manipulate what you refuse to acknowledge. And once you see that, her control starts to break. There's a kind of woman who doesn't argue to find truth. She argues to win. And that's the fifth red flag. Constant conflict with no resolution. She doesn't want to solve problems. She wants to dominate them. You'll notice that every disagreement ends the same way. You apologizing, her walking away as the victim. Even when you're right, she'll twist your logic until you start questioning yourself. You'll tell yourself, it's not worth it. You'll let it go. But every time you do, a small piece of your self-respect goes with it. What makes this dangerous is how it rewires you emotionally. You start thinking peace means silence. You start equating love with tension. And before you know it, you're addicted to the chaos because it's become your normal. That's what psychological conditioning looks like. It's not about big fights or loud arguments. It's about slow emotional training that makes you believe that your peace is less important than her approval. The sixth red flag often hides behind charm. She plays victim too easily. Every ex was toxic. Every problem in her life is someone else's fault. Everyone did her wrong. At first you empathize. You want to protect her, to be different. But the pattern will repeat. One day, you become the villain in her story. You'll notice that in her world, accountability never lives inside her, and the moment you try to hold her responsible, she'll flip it back on you. Suddenly you're cold, selfish, or uncaring. This constant guilt trap breaks many good men because it makes you feel like you're always failing her, even when you're doing everything right. That's not love. That's emotional blackmail. And if you've ever felt drained after every argument, like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough, that's your warning sign. Because real connection doesn't drain you, it grounds you. You shouldn't feel like you're walking on eggshells around someone who claims to love you. You shouldn't fear honesty. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your self-worth just to keep the peace. If your peace disappears the moment she enters the room, that's not chemistry. That's chaos wearing perfume. And the longer you mistake that for passion, the more you'll confuse pain with meaning. There's a moment every man faces, the one where he realizes she doesn't want him, she wants the version of him she can control. That's the seventh red flag. She competes with your growth. At first, she'll pretend to support it. She'll say she loves your ambition, your discipline, your focus. But when that growth starts pulling you toward independence, when you start saying no, setting boundaries, or spending more time on yourself, suddenly she feels neglected. She'll call your focus on goals selfish. Your time in the gym becomes you caring more about yourself than her. She'll say she misses how things used to be. But what she really misses is when you were easier to control. When you start becoming the man you were meant to be, she'll sense the power shift, and that threatens her need for dominance. You'll see it in subtle ways, the backhanded compliments, the little digs when you succeed. You've changed, she'll say, not because you became worse, but because you became harder to manipulate. She'll test your loyalty by creating emotional storms, arguments before important events, guilt trips when you focus on your purpose. It's not random, it's timing. A woman who fears your strength will always try to interrupt your momentum, and this is where most men break, because you're conditioned to believe that keeping her happy is the same as keeping love alive. But love without respect is a slow death. You cannot protect a bond by shrinking yourself. You cannot keep her close by dimming your light. If her affection depends on your submission, it's not love, it's dependency. Here's the truth no one tells you. A woman who truly values you doesn't compete with your purpose. She aligns with it. She doesn't fear your confidence. She's inspired by it. She doesn't try to be your priority above your mission. She stands beside you while you chase it. And if she can't handle your growth, it's because she never wanted your soul. She wanted your silence. Remember this. You can't build a kingdom with someone who's threatened by the king. There's a kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises, the pain of being slowly erased. That's the eighth red flag. She isolates you from your world. At first it feels innocent. She says, "Your friends don't really get you," or "Your family doesn't appreciate what we have." You think she's being protective, loyal, but step by step she starts cutting you off from your support system, the people who see you clearly. Because as long as others can remind you who you are, she can't fully control who you become. Isolation doesn't happen overnight. It starts when she convinces you to skip that guy's night just this once. Then it becomes a pattern. The more time you give her, the less you spend refilling yourself. Eventually, your world shrinks to her mood swings, her opinions, her validation. That's how she builds emotional dependency, not by forcing you, but by convincing you that she's all you need. The scariest part? You'll start defending her behavior. You'll tell your friends, she's just emotional. You'll start believing you're the problem. You'll silence your instincts, abandon your hobbies, and lose your spark, all in the name of keeping the peace. That's not peace. That's self-erasure disguised as love. And once you're emotionally isolated, she holds all the power. She knows when you're lonely. She knows when you'll cave. And she uses that to reset your boundaries whenever they threaten her control. That's not an accident. That's strategy. Some women don't want to grow with you. They want to own the version of you that keeps them comfortable. But the truth is, you were never born to shrink for someone else's security. You were born to rise, to build, to protect your energy from anything that feeds off it without giving back. A relationship is supposed to make you more of yourself, not less. The moment you start apologizing for your peace, your silence, or your dreams, that's the moment you start disappearing. If a woman truly loves you, she'll want to see you connected, grounded, alive. She won't pull you away from the world. She'll help you face it stronger. Love doesn't isolate you. Love expands you. Here's the hardest truth of all. Sometimes walking away from her isn't rejection, it's redemption. Because the final red flag isn't in her behavior, it's in yours. It's when you start betraying yourself to keep her. When you start explaining away disrespect, defending manipulation, or mistaking chaos for love, that's when you've crossed from loving her to losing yourself. And no one tells men this, that sometimes your biggest act of strength isn't fighting for her, it's choosing yourself. You see, a man doesn't fall because of one bad woman. He falls because he refuses to listen when his soul whispers, "You deserve more." You're told to endure, to fix, to protect. But no one teaches you that protecting your peace is also a form of love. That walking away from someone who drains you isn't cold, it's self-respect. If she can't meet you with honesty, empathy, and consistency, if she thrives on drama, guilt, and emotional confusion, that's not love, that's survival disguised as romance. You can't build a life in that. You can't grow in that. You'll just keep bleeding quietly while calling it commitment. But you can end it. You can reclaim your power, not by revenge, not by hate, but by returning to yourself. By remembering that peace doesn't come from her apology. It comes from your decision to stop participating in your own pain. And when you finally walk away, something powerful happens. The fog lifts, your thoughts get clearer, you start sleeping better, you start laughing again. That's not loneliness, that's healing. That's what freedom feels like when you've spent too long chained to someone who thrived on your confusion. So let me ask you something personal. Have you ever ignored a red flag just because you didn't want to be alone? Tell me in the comments, because someone out there needs to read your truth tonight. And if this message hits something deep in you, hit that like, subscribe, and share it with a man who needs to hear this before it's too late. Because every man deserves peace, not pain disguised as love.